everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and welcome to the behind the scenes vlog for the 2022 ChemKnits Chanukah special. I am sitting down and filming this intro without having edited the video yet. Normally, I film these talking heads once I have completed the editing, and then I go and film the introduction and conclusion all at once, so that way I make sure I add any other information I think I need. But I'm not doing that today. So I guess this is a behind the scenes look at some of the filming that I do. Throughout this vlog, I am going to take you through the making of everything that went into the ChemKnits Chanukah yarn sampler. I'll talk probably some bits about the colorways and concerns about that, but I'll take you through the extras that I made, the packaging, wrapping, shipping, what the final box looks like, and we're finally going to get to see all 8 nights laid out together. And I'll talk a little bit about why I picked the order of the colorways that I did. But now we're going to go and look at all these clips in chronological order. I don't think I'm going to rearrange anything. And I'm pretty sure editing Rebecca will let you know with the date of the first clip, but I'm pretty sure the first clip for the 2022 ChemKnits Chanukah sampler was actually filmed in January 2022 because I started working on this year's sampler pretty much as soon as last year's wrapped. And I had a very special, very Chanukah idea for a charm I wanted to make myself. But as we go and actually get into the vlog, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss any new videos. Okay, I'm wrong. The first clips that I filmed for this were from May 2022, but back in October of 2021, I started playing around with my idea for a little dreidel made out of clay. Oh yeah, it's just the very first attempt out of like an air dry clay. Didn't work at all. So I switched gears a little bit, and I can't find pictures or anything of the original prototypes I made, but I'm going to take you through the whole process of the little dreidels made out of clay. I had a little dreidel. I made it out of clay, and that's what I'm doing now. I 3D printed these little cookie cutters, designing them to give us an approximate shape. The part that you hold to spin a dreidel is a little bit thin. So on the clay, I do thicken it out, but then I add a little hole to make a charm for a progress keeper. Now these prototypes I made a long time ago. And so I'm now playing around with the glitter clay to get some cool marble type effects. To make some more. But before I cut it, I do put it in the freezer for a little bit so it firms up. That's a tip I found, I think. I don't remember how long I'm supposed to do anything. Here is some clay I just took out of the freezer, and I'm just kind of gonna press this down. It's been a while since I tried making those, so we're just gonna have to see how this goes as I peel this away. And now I believe, I don't remember which one I used to get it out, but I think like maybe the flat end of this. Oh, I don't remember. Oh, there we go. Of course, that's gonna need some smoothing. I do remember that I sort of shortened this and sort of flattened it out. I think using, oh, don't I have like a little cutter? Oh, this is what I used to do it. Okay, so this has like a little flat edge. And so, I mean, I don't remember how I smoothed that out, but I think I did use the flat edge of this to help me flatten everything, which I'm totally not doing well on camera. I'll figure it out and be back. But a draft. Remembering a little bit more of what I did to like re-press out the sides, and then to take this to make a little hole, and I am not on camera, sort of putting that through wiggling it around a little bit to make a nice hole, so eventually it'll be a charm. This is not the best one I've done, but we'll practice and I'll get there again. So we've got a bunch that need to be reshaped, and here they are after a bit of shaping. You can see I made the stems shorter and I added holes. I will probably want to move them onto a flatter surface to heat them, but yeah, I'm going to keep going. Here are a lot of finished ones, and they're all so different. Some of these have the wrong side up, but I like the softness of that one. But they often all have like cool other sides as well. I love when there's like a streak of color. And so I've been trying to make way more than I think I might need in case any break, or I get one and I realize like, oh, that has like a sharp piece that might catch on yarn or something like that. But, oh no, it is just so fun. And they sparkle. It is currently the end of July, and I think I now have all of the yarn that I need to create the yarn for Chanukah. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do yet, and I have a lot of ideas of techniques and a couple colors that I want to do. I don't know if I'm gonna have a theme that pulls everything together. When I do themes for Chanukah, they tend to be pretty loose. In past years, once I did sort of depths of shade, we started light and things got darker and darker. Last year, I did a number of colors using 1 to 8 colors on the nights. A previous year, each night had like a different color theme and there was an overall rainbow to it. But yeah, I have a feeling that this year I might choose like something like abstract for each night maybe, or I might just have it be like a few of my favorite things, or just have it be fun colors. I'm not sure yet, but that is pulling together. But at least I have the yarn, so let's go look at that. I tend to break up ordering yarn for Chanukah into a couple different batches. That way, if I forget something, I still have enough yarn I need to order to get to the order minimums, and so I find that handy. But this is a sample skein of Angel Select Lace. Look at this. Alpaca Silk Cashmere Stellina. This is so soft and gorgeous. Not for Chanukah, but I didn't know if I wanted to reveal what the bases are, so I didn't do this in a live unboxing. I've got some of our bonus yarn, some more bonus yarn. We're going to do a DK because this yak silk yarn is amazing. We've got some 20-gram minis for bonuses, more. That's more of the DK. This isn't for Chanukah, but these are some lace weight silk, like 3-gram skeins. It's like embroidery silk. And I'm very excited because I can use this for a lot of different like silk experiments. And yeah, we'll dye some embroidery floss. So that also is not for Chanukah. But then here we go. We've got our 10-gram micro skeins. This one looks like it's a fingering weight one. And yeah, now I need to just start sorting them into bins so we can plan out the dyeing. And here is all of the yarn for the 8 main nights. I like to separate out all the mini skeins before I dye it, so that way it's like a triple check to make sure I had enough yarn. And in fact, I couldn't find some of the yarn I ordered, and I was like, what did I do with it? And I found it on a shelf in a bin, which had previously been an open shelf, and so I solved the mystery. But I'll put lids on these, and then once the yarn is dyed, the yarn will go in these bins as well. And so it's just a very easy way for me to keep track of all the yarn throughout the entire process. I don't think I've shown in any of these videos how I sort of group the mini skeins, how I untwist them and everything to get ready to dye yarn. So I start off by finding the edge where the ends are tucked in, and I loop one over my thumb, but I don't untwist it all the way yet. So I will do this for a group of 10. I typically group the yarn in groups of 10 because it's an easy way to count when dyeing, and then it's basically just a 100-gram skein. And so it makes it easy to do any math if there's math I would like to do. Okay, so now I have 10 on my thumbs, and I make sure that they're all straight. There's still twist in here, but I don't want them still like folded up on themselves, so I shake it or rub my hand over it to make sure. And then I start opening it up until I can put my hands through, and then I snap it open that way. It ends up going a lot faster than opening and untwisting each one individually. Occasionally they can start to tangle on each other, and so if you feel any resistance, just stop, and then you can kind of use your other hand to help with that. But this is just how I prep the yarn. And so now, tomorrow I plan to start dyeing the first 1 or 2 colorways, maybe even 3. At least the first layer of 3 of the colorways for Hanukkah. I still don't have a theme, but I think I'm going to go more for techniques and colors that I want to dye, rather than trying to force everything into a theme. There are some bits and pieces from past videos that I've really loved and wanted to do for Hanukkah, and so I'm going to lean into that because I think those are all colorways that you should get to hold in person and see and play with. I don't yet know which night of Hanukkah this will be, but this was the layered 3 times. And I have some skeins in one set of DK that are fine, others that I'm not sure about the placement, so I'm going to reskein them. This is another one I will reskein. I will be doing the reskeining manually and checking each one because I want them to be easy for you all to wind into containers. Thankfully, reskeining is pretty easy when it comes to mini skeins because there isn't that much yardage, and at least it's the DK, so that's not going to be that bad. But I will be grabbing some of my PVC pipe nitty knotties, and I don't think I'm even going to set up a Swift. I think I'm going to use the back of a chair to help rewind and unwind and do a lot of it manually to make sure we don't have snags or create any knots. But now I'm thinking, because for the bonus night of Hanukkah this year, I'm using Leave No Dye Behind skeins, yarn mops from the videos. But maybe this particular video would do well if I did a little bit of mixing all the colors together. Maybe that would be another bonus. We'll see. This year I have fallen back in love with my hot plate, and I'm finding myself using it a lot more, not just for videos, but in live streams as well. I think a main reason why I like it is it gives me a third spot from a stove or something, because then it means that on my actual stove I can have another pan set up plus a steamer basket. Sometimes I might put the steamer basket on the hot plate and do all the other dyeing on the stove, but it gives me a little more space with the camera when I'm dyeing on the counter, because I can have the camera mounted up here, the hot plate, and I have space around. I can move around a little bit more, whereas the stove is kind of in a corner, and so things are a little bit tighter. And so that's not just Hanukkah, but just like in general. And I thought it might be fun to share why I've fallen back in love with this. But a lot of dyers might use lots of different kinds of heating setups. There are steam pans that have the water bath that dyers may use, and even steam cupboards and other things. And so depending on the space that you have, there are a lot of different things that you can consider. I'm not sure if multiple of these would work well without potentially blowing a fuse. So if that is something that you are considering, it's worth, I guess, just looking into the electrical requirements of them. But for now, I'm pretty content in my kitchen with this extra set of burners. It's mid-September and I have dyed 7 of the 8 main colorways. I still have more Leave No Dye Behind, the 20-gram skeins to dye, but I know I can do some of those when I'm doing the add-on colorways. And if I need to, I can go back and dye some more based on the Leave No Dye Behind things that I have from some of the other nights. So I'm not worried about that. But I have to figure out what I want to do for this 8th video. I don't know if this 8th video will come out on night 8 or if it's going to come out a little sooner. But I have spent a lot of time looking at all of the yarn I've dyed so far. Whether it's just a screenshot from one of the videos or it's a photograph I took of the conclusions. I did something similar when planning for night 6 because I wanted something that felt different from the rest of the yarn. I want there to be surprise and anticipation over what is coming. I don't want to be too predictable, even to myself. And yet I'm debating because there are colorways I would love to create for the sampler. You know, I would love to play with hyacinth and sage leaf again. I love the way those worked together. I just don't know if that's predictable. And actually all those thumbnails that I popped up. I'm probably gonna look at them in a few days to figure out what color and colors I want to use for the final colorway. Technique-wise, I have maybe 3 different ideas of what I might want to do, which I'm not going to share because the ideas that I don't do will probably be featured in next year's Hanukkah special. But anyway, you now know what I ended up doing, so you have more information than me. But I do start jury duty on Monday. So fingers crossed I only have to serve a couple of days and I don't get put on a long trial. Because if I do, then, well, that'll make this series extra interesting because I will be a lot more time limited this fall. I'm using one of the Cricut calligraphy pens for the first time for the Hanukkah cards. And the end, like, gets some debris on it. And I'm not really sure what that is about. But hey, you know I'm making them by hand. There are a variety of colors that I'm using, and the colors of the backings will vary eventually as well. But I think the back, and then I'll sign these, is really cute. With a Nun Gimel Hey Shin. That stands for Nes Gadol Hayasham. A great miracle happened there. And those are the Hebrew letters that are on the dreidel. I did play around with the angle of the pen because the tip is not symmetrical. It's a calligraphy tip. And so I have the arrow pointing at sort of a 45-degree angle this way. And so the tip, where there's always like a little triangle on the markers like that. And so I have it pointing kind of like that. I think that there may have been a Leave No Die Behind video this fall where if you listen closely, you might hear the sounds of the Cricut whirling in the background. But right now I'm just starting to sign these cards. For now, I'm using this metallic Crayola marker, but that might shift depending on if it runs dry. But it's just fun, and I have my assembly line of ones that are waiting for their inserts, ones that I've signed, and oh my goodness, it's almost going to be time for me to start wrapping the yarn. I had so much fun making the 3D printed gelt last year that we decided to do a 2022 version. And I don't know, it's just fun to have something that commemorates the year of the set in addition to having something whimsical and Hanukkah themed. Our 3D printer is currently working on the very first layer. I don't think it would be easy. You can kind of see it, but it's so close because we're just at one layer of the charms so far. If you're curious about 3D printing, a lot of libraries will have maker spaces where you can design and get things that you've designed in a queue to print. I designed these cards using a free program called Tinkercad, where you can use a lot of different shapes to build a 3D object. And then Keith does all the magic to make it so it can be 3D printed. That's something that I haven't done myself, to convert a 3-dimensional shape into slices and layers that the machine can then print. So that's not something I actually have experience with. Keith helps with that. But again, it is worth checking out your local library to see if they could help you with your creation. Now, doing something as tiny as these required a little bit of tinkering to get it right. I think in last year's vlog, I showed some of the iterations of the design and prints. But so far, I'm really excited with how this year's is coming. And I can say I'm especially excited because there was a piece that was broken. And so for a while, we didn't think that this might happen. I am currently sitting at my counter, putting stickers on. I don't know. Trying to do this with the camera has me going even slower, and that one's a little crooked. This is a lot slower than I expected. It potentially would have been worth me using markers to draw the numbers onto the little dreidels, especially because this is not the label with the date. This is just there to be cute. But I did want to, because the date's going to be on a sticker, I wanted to have a label with the number, so that way if you are not going to keep the wrapping and the bags, that way you can label your minis for which was from which night, because I know some people like to do that. And so that's why I am including these. I really like the font, but Next year, Rebecca, if I'm, depending on the type of bag and everything that I'm going to use to wrap, if I'm going to do something like this again, I would recommend taking the time and letting the machine write the numbers on, because I don't think that this is that time effective, and I feel like this is taking almost as long as it will to like wrap the minis hilariously, or it's almost taking as long to do one of these as it does to make a stitch marker, which I find hilarious. I am about halfway through filming the dyeing for the final video, the bonus sparkle add-on colorway. And whew, this was a journey, and I did not decide on this colorway until yesterday. I think it was yesterday when I dyed a part 2 for the October ChemKnits dye-along. I wanted to make a Halloween video. It was inspired by Hocus Pocus. I did this... I think he's done barking now. I hope. I did this colorway with layered stars, and then I dip dyed it into midnight blue. And I loved the depth of the midnight blue color and thought that that would look amazing with the pops of silver lurex. I had already wanted to do something repeating-esque, and I knew I wanted to play with lavender, but this had me decide to do this layered kind of dip dye thing that I ended up doing versus doing something similar to one of the nights I had done for Hanukkah already. And so that's what I was like debating. I wanted to do either like a layered technique or everything that I wanted to do. I'm like, well, technically this is represented in one night of Hanukkah and I want to do a different technique. And so, yeah, inspiration struck at that last moment, I suppose. But anyway, now I am in the middle. I've probably finished, I guess, 10 skeins have been, I mean, 2 of them are in the pot with the final dip dye. But we've got the assembly line going, and there is yarn in all kinds of containers and all kinds of stages. I'm close to being done with the first stage of lavender, so then I'll be able to have 2 pots set up for that dip dye. But yeah, I'm very happy with how this is coming together. I'm changing angles because I'm doing a lot of dip dyeing and my arms are tired. But this brings me to, I guess, a point about when you're dyeing large quantities of yarn, you need to pick a technique that is scalable. And as someone who's primarily a small batch dyer, when I have to dye 40 some skeins in a colorway, I don't want each pan to take 2 hours because that would just take a really long time. And I don't have a way, like with a steam cupboard or something, to scale up one thing to heat it all at once. So the heat stage is something that is often a rate limiting factor, which is why sometimes I do a lot of cool vat or cold process things. And, you know, maybe we'll try one of those for a large scale, maybe something with like the stacked variegated yarn, and we can try to scale that up someday. But yeah, when I'm planning out colorways, I do need to consider, okay, how physically demanding is it going to be to scale this up? And that's not to say that the colorways that I do for add-ons are simpler or anything. It's more about, okay, how can I achieve this in a few days of dyeing? Because the add-ons probably have 3 or 4 times as much yarn that I'm dyeing compared to any individual night of Hanukkah where it's mini skeins. So just to put that into perspective, when it might take me a day or sometimes over a day to film one of the Hanukkah videos and to do the dyeing for that, if I have to dye 4 times as much that's what I need to take into consideration. But the nice thing about this dip dyeing and having this sort of scaled assembly line almost is that I can pick things up tomorrow or the next day to finish it off. And so I can do it in stages, and it's easy to come back, and I'm not going to forget, oh, how much of the powder was I adding? And so countertop speckles, like I did in the first video, is also fairly labor intensive. But since things are steaming, basically I do a set, put it in the steamer basket, and just don't start the steamer timer until I have the steamer basket all the way full. And so then I can steam a lot of yarn at once. And so that's something that's really nice about that technique. But anyway, just about time for me to start wrapping up the skeins. I still haven't decided which order the 8 nights are going to be in, but I mentioned in my October live stream that there was something I was trying to do for Chanukah that I had to change around last minute, and like, not to be concerned because all the elements will still be there. It's just not quite the way I'd envisioned. Let me go show you. I got these fillable dreidels to use for packaging. Often these dreidels come with Gelt, the chocolate covered coins inside them, but I was able to find a source of them where they're empty. And while there's a barcode, which I'm not gonna try to remove from all of them because I don't think that would go well, they aren't stuck shut in any kind of way, which I think is a good thing. And they do, that was not a good example. And they do spin. It's a little harder to spin them when they're empty. It's a little easier when there's like when they have a little more weight to it. But so you can technically play dreidel with these. And so this is the first time I've included something kind of like a functional dreidel. But anyway, I wanted to put the bonus yarn in them. I really wanted to package things with this having the bonus skein, having 4 nights, you know, with this in the middle. I thought that that would be really pretty. The problem is that if you have a 20-gram mini skein, it doesn't fit well enough. So the 20-gram mini skein technically can fit inside the dreidel if I sort of fold and compress and then very carefully get the lid on. This one isn't twisted that well. Okay, use your imagination. This was not perfect, but I have been able to get the dyed minis in all the way. The problem is it's translucent, so you can see the yarn on the inside. And once I tried to wrap one of the mini skeins in just a napkin to sort of simulate the tissue paper, there was no way for me to get it in here and close it. And so it's not gonna work with a 20-gram mini. So therefore, I'm gonna put some of the 10-gram minis, or one of the 10-gram minis in here, maybe for night 1 because it'll be tempting to open. And so it'll have like it'll be different visually than what I thought it could do with having this be a standout. But I'm really excited that I was able to find these empty and fillable in an easy way. So I hope that you enjoy them. You guys, Dharma Trading Company just called me. So, you know how I said I needed to order more of the midnight blue, which turns out I didn't need to order more, but I did because, you know, why not? Oh, I guess I mentioned that in the video itself, how I started to worry I was going to run out of dye and then realized I miscalculated. No big deal. But I placed a Dharma order because I figured there's some other colors I'm low on that I needed. But I also had things that were in my cart kind of saved for a long time, and one of them wasn't in stock. So they called to see if I still wanted to order because one of the dyes was out of stock, and to ask if like maybe I needed a substitution or anything, which was very, very kind. Then they said that they love my videos so much. And it made me so happy because I don't know if like I have ChemKnits on my address or what, but yeah, like this isn't like creepy or anything. They called because there was an issue with the order and they wanted to try to make things right. They just recognized me, and that's just, I don't know. It made my day. It makes my day when like companies that, you know, I mention and reference all the time, but haven't like interacted with really, when they know who I am. So yeah, that was very exciting. I mean, they've shared some of my videos on social media before, so like, I know that they're like aware of videos, but it's, you know, you still don't know if they know ChemKnits or what, but since I had to reframe things, I designed this label to go on the top of the dreidels, and I'll probably use a little bit of tape so that way it can be removed, so that way you can have just the dreidel as it is. But I realized it was a missed opportunity. If I'd made it a little smaller, I could have stuck the label on the inside so you could see it through. Oh, but I made it too big. It's just too big to fit that way. And I'm almost done making them, so I'm not gonna waste the ones I made to do that, but missed opportunity. But anyway, I suppose this might be a little more obvious that there's a label on top of it. But I think that this will pack better than trying to like use a zip tie to attach one of the paper labels to it, which may rip off. So a tiny bit of tape. And we'll still have the dreidel labels with the number 1 because I've already made those. So that could be attached to the yarn later if desired. But I like this little spinny label that I made. I have our 8 nights and I'm struggling to come up with an order. There's some things that I know need to happen. Like that one needs to come after those 2. Not immediately after, but after. And so I want something that feels like it makes sense. And I like the order of the first 5, the way I have that laid out. Whew. It's hard because Chanukah isn't intended as a fade set, a set that is meant for all the colors to go together. But I know a lot of people do incorporate the colors together in order. So I'm trying to think about that and think about how I want to deal with that. Maybe I should move these ones earlier, but I feel like that this speckle needs to come after the neon speckle. I'm going to play with this some more. One other issue as I'm playing around with this is that I know the order that I film things, but I don't remember while I was filming it, because some of it was months ago, what I talked about and what other videos I referenced. Even though this year I tried to not reference things in a way. I feel like the last 2 years I designed the order. Maybe I flipped around a few nights when I went with like a depths of shade with lightest to darkest, but I had a plan for the overall order. And so therefore it was a lot easier. Whereas this year, I mean, I didn't. This year was just, I'm going to do what I want kind of thing. And so now I need to think of like a connective thread for them. Okay, I think I'm going to walk away for a minute to let it sit, but this is what I'm thinking. So we're going to start with something teal-ish that goes into something that has teal. And then this, I think, has one of the blues we used there, but is very bright and neon. And here we've got neon pops, including a pink. So going into something pink with some soft speckles overall, going into something super soft with speckles, but we've got a little bit of peach, so a little more orange, which is going to lead us into fall, which is going to lead us to our more brown. Again, not that this is a fade set, but this is sort of a connection between all of them, and it gives it a story. And so I'm happy. I'm really, really happy that I didn't play with too many muted colors and that we have a lot more variegated, multicolored things versus dealing with sort of monochromatic families that sometimes I lean for. And so I like the way this all came together. But yeah, I'm going to let it marinate for a little bit in my brain. It's funny that I'm using my main filming camera for the vlog right now. And my instinct was like, ooh, I should take some pictures of this for the vlog. But this is the vlog. But anyway, for the wrapping, I'm actually going to start with the bonus 20-gram mini skeins that unfortunately don't fit in the dreidels, but will fit in some awesome organza bags that I have left over from a couple of years ago. So we can use these with different colored tissue paper, so that way it's easy to tell the fingering and DK weights apart. And then I'm going to put the episode number on these labels for those so it can be easy for people to know when to open them. I'll also handwrite the date on. But I don't know which one I'm going to keep for my own set. There's a lot that I really, really like here. Oh man, I think, maybe I'll keep one from night 9 because that's different from the rest. But I can't decide. I really like all of these bonus skeins. And I love how all of this, if this was going to be a set of 8 or 9, would be a really fun set as well. The only place where things are a tad bit close to one another are these bonus skeins from nights 5 and 6, which it's funny because the actual colorways are quite different. One is way more variegated, the other one is very soft, almost pastel, but these yarn mops don't have a lot of contrast between them and have relatively similar color families on there. I suppose technically one of night 4's is also a little similar to night 9, but this isn't an issue at all because each of you is only getting one of these bonus skeins. And so the main goal that I had was to make sure that these looked sufficiently different from the yarn that was dyed for that night. And so that way there would be contrast in there, so you would have a fun 9th colorway. So let me know in the comments which night was your bonus skein from. I look forward to hearing what you thought of it. I've been wrapping and packing up a storm. And I do want to give one little shout out, non-sponsored, to something that's been a huge lifesaver. And that is my Skein Twister. This has a foot pedal, so I can determine how much twist I want in a skein. And really just like saves my wrist and honestly makes everything go so much faster when it comes to twisting up hundreds and hundreds of mini skeins and dozens of full skeins. So I use this guy all the time. Yeah, so it's the Skein Twister by App & Glow Yarn. It is expensive, and I know some people set up their own kind of version using like a drill, but this is my most used gadget. I love it, love it, love it. Was last year the first year I had this? I now don't remember what year I got it, but I got it for a Hanukkah, and so yeah, it feels just appropriate to give another small business a shout out. Again, not sponsored or anything. Now it is finally time for me to start assembling the packages and putting all of these pieces together. But I'm really, really glad that I can easily tell the difference between the blue tissue paper and the purple tissue paper. In some lights, that's a little more challenging. And that is the big indication of, oh, DK versus fingering weight. But yeah, I guess maybe I'll make a bunch. Yeah, I'll set up the assembly line and then I'll start making a bunch of boxes. This is the first one that I packed and I just tested using the 100 grams of yarn and few things fit. I need to figure out how I'm going to arrange it when I do not have that in here. Maybe I'll do something like this because I think that when it's closed, let's see how much. It shakes a little bit, but it should be fine. It's yarn. The thing I'm most concerned about, I guess, would be something happening to the dreidel. But again, I think it should be okay. And I mentioned this in the letter, but there is going to be a number 1 little label that you can attach to your yarn in any kind of way because the number 1 night is in this dreidel and therefore doesn't have the same little label that all the other nights have. But you can see that we've got, oh, this one has a stitch marker in it and we've got the date and everything on the back. I explain all this in the letter that I will include in the boxes. To kind of say like what's in your box, what you can find, and all right, I gotta just start moving. I don't think I've filmed very many clips of me packing, but I tend to make like this little triangle of boxes, and so I sort of sit in the middle of there, and so I can reach and grab all of the different components I need for the box. And then over here, I have the bonus ones and I'll pre-make a bunch of boxes and then just sort of make this stacked assembly line. I always leave, oh, and I put a yarn label, the extra 1 label that we're using this year, and a business card at the bottom. That normally I will do like sort of in layers. I save the letter that sort of describes the whole series, what's in the box, for the very end. And I know you can't see what I'm putting in the box, but doing it in stages like this eases with just the way, making sure everything comes together and making sure I put everything in each box. And so then we have a nice little box like this that I'm trying to not spill out. But then, as I do with the packing slip, then the letter can go on top, and one of the cards that I made can go on top too as I close up. So that's kind of what goes into this. But as I sit here, all of these wrapped minis are all within reach, as are the boxes, and so I can just sit here and just grab everything and put it on in. You may have noticed that not all the minis are wrapped. I think I did explain this at one point, but I do it in waves because there's a limit of how many wrapped minis I can fit in a box, and I want to make sure that I can keep track of everything well. And so this year I'm doing 3 waves. This is the second wave I'm working on now. And normally I store all the minis for each night in one of these boxes. So as this gets emptier, then I can load more things in. So what, this is the 5th year, I think, that I've done a Chanukah sampler. And so I think that of all the stages, this packing, like actually physically putting everything into the boxes, is probably the easiest stage of all of them. I mean, wrapping each of the individual minis isn't bad, but I always want to make sure I'm careful, and then I have like the stitch marker in each of them and things like that. So this just ends up being like pretty easy and straightforward. And so I'll make a bunch of boxes and then like sort of in stages get shipping labels for them. But yeah, I think that after 5 years, I've hit a good groove for this part, and putting everything in the boxes, I think, outside of the dyeing, I think it's probably one of my favorite parts. I like seeing everything come together, and I guess imagining what it feels like when you open the box and see what's inside. So I hope that you've enjoyed opening this and seeing what's in there. And I will admit, I've already started planning for next year's because as I'm working on one, sometimes I have too many ideas. And so then like I start just putting things together. Like the clay dreidel stitch marker, which I think was one of the first clips of the vlog. I think I made those in January. So right after last year's, I had that idea and I did that right away. So that is always really, really fun. But anyway, I'm going to go ship. I just finished dropping off the rest of the pre-orders. Huge sigh of relief. And it is a very uncharacteristically warm day in November. It's like 75 outside right now in Massachusetts. This is wild, but it feels really, really good. The one thing I always feel bad about is I buy the shipping labels at home. And so then when I drop off the packages, I have them scan in and I get like a receipt with the tracking numbers, which is like proof that I dropped it off in case, God forbid, things get lost, which does happen occasionally. But the teller, the postal worker, reminded me that you can get a list, like a manifest. You get a scan list that has all the tracking numbers on it that you can bring in, so they just scan that. But when I tried doing that through Etsy in the past, it didn't really work. So if any of you ship through Etsy, have you been able to get the scan form to work? I'm super, super curious. I mean, technically I've dropped these off. I suppose when I get home, I can see if that's something I can do, because the labels were created for today, even though I made them all yesterday. So I don't know, but I still have a bunch of samplers left, and I'm a little nervous that they're not gonna sell. And I'm sure I went through this last year and then they all ended up selling, and so that wasn't an issue, but I'm nervous and I have some travel coming up, not like 2 weeks before Hanukkah starts, and so I won't be able to ship in that week. So I don't know. I'm a little nervous about that. Technically, I still have some more to wrap, but I do have some ready to ship right now. So maybe I'll take a break and dye some yarn today, or edit. Maybe I'll edit. But yeah, the things on my mind are shipping slips, if that'll make things easier. And then, yeah, hoping that people will buy the rest of the ones that I made. Oh, I'm a bit nervous. Because unlike the spring or the summer where I'm making fade sets, I know like if they didn't sell, then they could just end up being inventory in my shop, and that's no problem. But the Hanukkah sampler, since it's not a fade set, then I have a bunch of random minis in different colorways. So I don't know. But I'm also need to start thinking about Black Friday, and I'm excited about all that. But I'm rambling, so I'm going to go. And, oh, actually, I'm going to film probably what's going to show up next, where we're going to look at the packaging and the minis all laid out. And yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do today, which maybe I showed already in this video, or maybe I didn't. I don't know, because this will be the absolute last video that I edit for the whole series. Have I shown you how I've been keeping track of all of these minis to make sure I continue to have each night with the right stuff? I've been using just a twist tie with the dreidel label, attaching the relevant stitch marker progress keeper so that way I can keep track of all the nights. But here are the 8 nights from this year. We have the 4 progress keepers, the little penguin, I'm obsessed with penguins, fire flower for the lights of Hanukkah, the dreidel that I made out of clay, and then our 3D printed gelt that says 2022 on it. I didn't want to put, part of me would have loved to have put real chocolate into the samplers, but that may have ended up being a mess. And of course these samplers also had the refillable dreidel for packaging that you really can play with. I finally got a good spin. Let's see. Ah, shin, I gotta put one back in. But I hope that you enjoyed that whimsy and having a mini skein in there. I know we didn't have a clear theme for our main colorways this year, but I hope that you enjoyed the layering and the whimsy of these colors. And I really aimed to get different types of colorways that would knit or crochet up differently from one another. Whether we have subtle speckles, heavier speckles, variegated yarn, or more soft tonals. I hope that seeing how different techniques can give you different types of yarn, some more random, some more planned, is really, really helpful. Because beyond everything else, one of my huge goals of the whole series is to not only have fun with a lot of color, but show how different types of yarn looks in person, so that way you can play with it and swatch it and feel it, and then decide what techniques might be your favorite to play with. The packaging for the bonus add-on skeins this year is similar to previous years. I just like using these organza wine bags. I feel like there's something reusable about them, and they fit a skein of yarn perfectly. The one thing that I did do differently this year is that starting out, each of the 2 different colorways had a different progress keeper. Our little snowflake is light blue with clear sort of glittery background for the DK weight bonus. And then it is pale purple with a similar glittery background for the sparkle yarn. The 2 bonus colorways are quite different from one another, but I adore it. I love each of them so much. But with the exception of the actual packaging, here is everything that went into the samplers this year. And of course, the bonus skein does vary from kit to kit, but I am so proud of how it all came together, and I really hope that you've loved it too. With the lighting down here, you can really see that iridescence of the bags that we used. And what's funny is that the glow feels so green when, like, I bought purple iridescent bags, which is not a problem. Part of the iridescence is like the way things look under different lights. It's just, I'm amused and loving the green because it feels very flame-like. I don't know. Even though there's not really green in flames, I'm just seeing like flashes of light, and so I really hope that you got excited as you opened it up. And there we have it. We are at the end of the 2022 ChemKnits Hanukkah special. Do you have a favorite night? Please let me know down in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed. Again, this is the biggest way you can help support the content here. And if you have your notifications on, then you can make sure you never miss a new video. And since I was nervous in one of those clips, I do want to share that the samplers did all sell out in the end. A lot of people, as the holidays are getting closer, bought one, and I really want to thank you all for supporting this series, whether you're watching or you bought a sampler. But yeah, I'm glad that I have enough so that way they don't sell out immediately, so that way people who are waiting for paychecks or whatnot can still get one. But sometimes it's nervous when you have a lot of inventory and you're not sure what's going to happen to it. The one thing that does tend to sell out quickly are those add-on skeins. Every year I try to increase the number and dye more and more, and those do tend to sell out pretty quickly. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the pre-orders for next year's Hanukkah or the spring or summer mini skein mini series, the best thing that you can do is follow me on social media, and in particular, follow me over on Patreon. You can sign up to become a ChemKnits patron, which does cost money, but you can have an account and follow me on Patreon for free. And then you get, I guess it depends on the settings you set up, but you can get an email every time I make a public post there. And so I think that that's probably one of the easiest ways to really get notified when pre-orders go live, because then you get an email and you don't have to be checking Instagram or something. But I do always announce it across all platforms, including here on YouTube. But yeah, if you want to know where you can follow me on social media, I have all of my handles down in the video description. And yes, I'm even on TikTok, but I don't make announcements on TikTok. Everything that ends up on TikTok is also on Instagram. I did mean what I said, and I've already been planning not colorways, but extras for 2023, and I've ordered a lot of them already. That's how on the ball I was. I love getting samples of little charms that I can use for stitch markers, and so I'm very, very excited with what I have coming up, but we're gonna have to wait about a year. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for joining me and celebrating Hanukkah with me. It's such a joy to celebrate the season of warmth and light with a wonderful community. And if you are Jewish and celebrating Hanukkah, I'm glad that you joined me. And if you don't normally celebrate Hanukkah, I'm glad you joined me because it's so much fun. And I really just enjoy sharing this part of me with all of you. And you know, maybe there's a part of me in creating something so that way everyone can make sure that they have something to open up every night. I know some of you know what I'm talking about. There are still a couple more videos left for 2022, so stay tuned. But I hope that you all have a wonderful end to 2022 and a very happy new year. Thank you so much for watching.